done this 100 times before. Different faces, same ending. A man who didn't miss, a man who didn't hesitate, a man whose shadow had more blood on it than most people's hands. They called him precise, efficient, invisible. He called it Tuesday. Tonight was supposed to be no different. The file had your photo in it, just another stranger he'd never meet alive. Your name, your address, your routines, all laid out like a recipe. Step 1, find you. Step 2, end you. The street was quiet when he arrived. His steps didn't echo. His breath didn't fog. He moved like the night itself had been hired. No nerves, no hesitation, just muscle memory in a black coat. But as he closed the last few yards, something caught him. Not a sound, not a sight, but a shift. Like the air changed its mind about who was in control. And for the first time in years, the man who was always the hunter felt watched. He saw you before you were supposed to see him, but you didn't flinch, didn't even glance around like someone who felt danger creeping up their spine. You just kept sitting there, hands loose, posture almost lazy, like the night wasn't carrying death towards you. It threw him off balance, though he didn't show it. In his world, the prey always twitched, eyes darted, breaths quickened, shoulders tightened. But you looked at him like you'd been waiting. Your gaze wasn't a plea, it wasn't a challenge either. It was something else, a quiet acknowledgement, like you'd already read the ending and decided to watch it play out anyway. And for reasons he couldn't name, his next step felt heavier than the last. The air around you wasn't charged with fear, it was thick with certainty. Not his certainty, yours. That didn't make sense, and that's what made it dangerous. Every instinct screamed that something was off. He'd walked into traps before, he'd survived them all, but this wasn't a trap. This was stillness, the kind of stillness that makes a man forget which side he's on. He adjusted his grip on the weapon, eyes scanning for a flaw, a weakness, a tell. And then you smiled, slow, knowing, and it felt less like you were greeting him and more like you were recognizing him. The smile was wrong, not fake, not forced. Wrong because it didn't belong here. It belonged in an old memory, the kind you carry without realizing, until someone opens it like a locked drawer, and suddenly you're looking at something you thought you'd buried. He told himself to ignore it, to focus. Yet, when his target smiled, his pulse answered. That had never happened before. You spoke before he could, not with panic, not with bargaining, but with curiosity, as if you'd stumbled upon a rare animal and wanted to see what it might do next. You came a long way, you said. The way you said it made it sound like a compliment instead of an accusation. The night seemed to lean in. Every distant sound dulled. The air pressed closer, and he could almost hear his own blood moving. He should have told you to shut up. He should have done what he was paid to do. Instead, he found himself listening. You said things you shouldn't know, about the city where he grew up, about the bar on 8th Street he used to haunt after jobs, about the sister he hadn't seen in 10 years. You didn't just list facts, you painted them. The sound of the rain on that bar's tin awning, the smell of his sister's perfume before she left without goodbye, you made him remember, and that was dangerous. When he asked how you knew, you didn't answer. You just tilted your head and said, "You're not here for me." Not really. The words cut deeper than any bullet, because for the first time, he didn't know if they were true or not. And worse, he wanted them to be. He told himself it was a trick, some kind of psychological game meant to buy you time. But there was something in your voice, not defiance, not desperation, something closer to recognition, like you'd met him before in another life. And this meeting was just unfinished business. Then you started talking about his past in detail, things buried so deep, even he didn't visit them anymore. You spoke about the boy who once dreamed of leaving the city, the man who swore he'd never be bought, the night he crossed that line and never came back. Each word was like a match thrown into a room full of old photographs. He didn't want to see them burn, but he couldn't look away. You weren't sparing your life. You were unraveling his. It was disarming, but not in the way a weapon is. More like standing in front of a mirror and realizing you'd forgotten your own face. And now the job wasn't about you at all. It was about him staring down the version of himself he'd killed a long time ago. The gun felt heavier, not because of its weight, but because of the decision it carried. His finger hovered, not out of hesitation, but out of the dawning truth that if he pulled it, he wouldn't just lose the target, he'd lose the only person who'd looked at him and seen him. He lowered it, not quickly, not dramatically, just enough to say, without words, that the job was over. He turned and walked away, not daring to look back, because he knew he'd see that same knowing smile. And maybe deep down, he wanted to believe that you had known this would happen from the moment you saw him. That night stayed with him. Every job after, every shadow, every name in every file, all of them weighed differently now, because once you've looked into the eyes of someone who sees the truth behind you, the rest of the world feels paper thin. The first change was small. He stopped taking the alley jobs, the quiet ones. He began to pick contracts that kept him on the road, in motion, where memories got lost in highway static. But the voice of your words kept blooming at the edges of his sleep. He woke with fragments. Your laugh, a detail from his childhood, an odd question you'd asked like a crow pecking at bone. They gnawed at him. Then came the nights he found himself sitting in cheap diners at 2 a.m, staring at empty chairs. He ordered coffee he didn't drink and traced the cracks in the formica until the patterns made him think of maps, of roads he hadn't taken, of people he had left behind. Sometimes, between jobs, he drove by the bar on 8th Street you'd mentioned. He'd slow down. He'd look in. The neon sign buzzed like a mosquito. The mirror behind the bottles caught him. Old face, new lines. Once, he almost went in. Once, he thought he heard your voice say, it's okay to stop. And then he didn't stop right away. Old ways are stubborn, but he started carrying less weight, not gear or like ghosts. He let the contracts pile up. He let the money sit. He answered calls later. He slept with the blinds half open so light could creep back in, like a patient refusing anesthesia. People noticed, clients grumbled. The men who hired him nudged their remotes at other names. Rumors are easier to chew than guilt. So they chose rumor. They told tales of a cold man who'd gone soft. They liked the story better than the truth, which was smaller and harder to hold. That a single look had shown him the place inside himself he'd been avoiding. Sometimes he drove out to where the river met the highway and parked. He'd sit and watch the water scrape the banks. He'd think about his sister. He'd let the old shame rise until it tasted like iron. And then, somewhere between one breath and the next, he'd whisper her name. It came out rough. It came out human. He never told anyone why he changed. He never confessed that a stranger had spoken him back into being, but the work changed. The motion became less mechanical. He found himself leaving behind wallets, fake IDs, a business card with a wrong number, small mercy notes for people he'd been paid to erase. Not many, enough to matter. Once, months later, someone handed him your file again. Different boss, different fee. He looked at the photo, same face, same smile. He felt the old muscle memory itch, reach, aim, take, but he folded the file and slid it across the table. He didn't need to explain. The man across from him understood. You saw something, he said. The hitman looked at him like a man looking at his own reflection. I remembered something, he said. You never showed up at his door. You didn't need to. The meeting in that faded corner of the city had been enough. You'd done what you needed to do with your eyes and your words. You'd lit a match under a man who'd forgotten he could still feel heat. And sometimes, late, when he was driving alone and the road straightened, he would press his thumb to a scar on his forearm and smile a small, private smile. He never knew whether you had planned to change him or if you just felt like talking to someone who wouldn't look away. Doesn't matter. The result was the same. You, who'd been the target, kept walking through the city like a rumor. A few people swore you were a ghost. Some said you were dangerous. Others said you were a saint in dirty shoes. But the thing that mattered was simple. One night, a man came to finish a job. He left with a different burden. He left with the knowledge that under his coat was a man who might still be saved. And you watched the horizon like someone waiting for a bus. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. Maybe you had always known what would happen. Maybe you had written it on the back of your hand and rubbed it out to see if the ink would come back. Either way, the world kept turning. Files kept sliding across tables. Phones kept ringing. People like him kept existing on the edge. But between one breath and another, something had shifted. A crack in concrete that would never fully seal. That was enough. That was everything.